I can't believe the day is finally here, and it's one that's going to honestly live in infamy. But on December 3rd, 2020, Joe Rogan deleted over 1 billion, that's with a B, all right, 1 billion views worth of videos off of his official YouTube channel. Now, just to give some background on this information, Joe Rogan is one of the most popular podcasts, if not the most popular podcast on the internet. And honestly, it's not even close, okay? This guy is one of the, I would say, founders of making podcasts mainstream. And he originated making, these videos on YouTube and uploading them to YouTube, along with, obviously, Apple Podcasts being his, I would say, secondary source of where this popularity derived from. But there was something unique about YouTube and the comment section and the entire YouTube community surrounding, this Joe Rogan podcast in terms of the video format. Like, Apple Podcast is great if you want to listen, but there was just something great about the YouTube aspect of it because it incorporated that video along with a comment section and a community on YouTube with, people watching the Joe Rogan podcast, all right? And they could give their thoughts. They could say if they disagreed with the visitor or they disagreed with Joe Rogan or even agreed with Joe Rogan and or the visitor, right? There was so many great things that derived from specifically the YouTube community and the comment section surrounding it, all right? So with that being said, Joe Rogan signed this Spotify exclusivity deal for $100 million, so I really can't blame him for signing this deal. But there's a lot of implications. There's a lot of things that made an end result on December 3rd, so we're going to jump into it right now. Drop a like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. I know every YouTuber asks you to do it, but if you enjoy this type of content, it would be greatly appreciated. All right, let's jump into this. So, like I said, Joe Rogan deleted over 1 billion views worth of videos off of his official YouTube channel. And honestly, it's pretty crazy that that's the actual number, right? Like, you can see the number on Social Blade. That seems to be where a lot of people are getting their information from in terms of statistics, regardless of whatever YouTube channel it is. You're able to see if people deleted videos with the extremely big nosedive in terms of views. And that's exactly what you're able to see on the Joe Rogan YouTube channel. Now, to my knowledge, JRE clips is somewhat still existent, but it's definitely going to be deleted very soon due to this exclusivity deal. So with that being said, there's a lot of things that have, made an end result on December 3rd, right? You have Joe Rogan now officially with his video format and podcast format only on Spotify. Like, if you load up the Spotify app, you get to watch the Joe Rogan podcast in terms of video and audio. And obviously, the biggest thing that a lot of people are very disappointed about for the people that don't have Spotify Premium is that you have to watch around 7 to 10 minutes worth of ads. Like, no exaggeration. You are forced to watch a ridiculous amount of ads from the pre-roll, so that means before you watch the podcast, and then there's sometimes mid-roll ads, so sometimes there'll be an ad in the middle of you listening to the podcast, and then there most likely will be a post-roll ad, so an ad at the end. Now, this is typical of YouTube videos such as myself, but in terms of the Joe Rogan podcast that existed on YouTube with all of its episodes, you really only saw Joe Rogan maybe have a pre-roll ad, and then you were able to watch the rest of the video, the 2 to 3 hour conversation that he would sometimes have with celebrities or whatever visitor it was, ad-free, right? So YouTube really kind of gave you the reins and kind of the, I would say, choice, and still gives you the choice to, put wherever ads you want on whatever portion of the YouTube video. Well, with Spotify, it's a little bit different. They have free reign over where they can put their ads, especially on Joe Rogan's podcast, one of the most popular, if not the most popular podcast on Spotify for sure. So, they're going to bombard you with ads if you don't have Spotify Premium. And even if you do have Spotify Premium, there's still a, chance that you're going to see pre-roll and sometimes mid-roll ads on Joe Rogan's podcast, whether it's the video format or the audio format. So there's a lot of just, I would say, frustrated people due to this scenario alone, because imagine listening to a podcast for, an hour in, and then all of a sudden you're disrupted with 2 to 3 minutes worth of ads. That's definitely annoying, and it's definitely going to, I would say, kill the viewership to a certain extent on this podcast. But at the end of the day, I have Spotify Premium. I really haven't seen that many ads, but I haven't been going crazy watching Joe Rogan every single day, but I definitely am pretty consistent with him. But at the end of the day, podcasts are great to listen to, but if you're disrupted with ads, it's definitely going to frustrate the listeners. So on top of this, the entire YouTube community that surrounded Joe Rogan is actually being very defiant in terms of getting Spotify Premium. A lot of people are so, I would say, frustrated at Joe Rogan for this exclusivity deal. And to be honest with you, I think anyone that was given $100 million would do pretty much a lot of different things, if you know what I mean. So it's not Joe Rogan's fault for, signing this contract. Some people are blaming him for it, but, the YouTube community is definitely pissed off that he moved to Spotify exclusively, because at the end of the day, there were a bunch of comments. There was a whole community, thousands of comments sometimes on a Joe Rogan clip. It wouldn't even be a full podcast video. It would be a clip of maybe, a popular portion of the podcast. And then people would, make memes about it. They would say if they disagreed or agreed with the visitor, or disagreed or agreed with Joe Rogan. And now that just doesn't exist anymore. There's no comment section on Spotify, which I think is a pretty important aspect that a lot of people are looking over, because sometimes I would see a clip, a 6 or 7 minute long clip with Joe Rogan, and Joe Rogan, he's definitely going to be polite to his visitors, and a lot of the time he gets, I would say, just criticism for agreeing with the visitor, even though he may or may not disagree with them wholeheartedly. And then, the comment section would call him out on it. So I thought that was a very interesting dynamic when I first started watching Joe Rogan. But the crazy thing is that the comment section really actually had a bunch of memes, but also it had some pretty good insights into maybe like historical data, or maybe there was some type of fact that Joe Rogan just didn't know and the visitor kind of misconstrued. And then the comment section would sometimes be a really good resource to find out if the visitor was BSing or not. So there was a lot of things that the comment section brought. Of course, the funny jokes and all that good stuff. But sometimes, my whole dynamic of my thought process would change based off of, a comment that was maybe 10 to 12 words long in a sentence. Like, that's what the YouTube comment section brought. And now we don't have that on Spotify, which is pretty unfortunate. Now, the biggest thing that a lot of people are calling out for this Spotify exclusivity deal really doesn't truly involve YouTube specifically, but more or less Spotify, the platform themselves. They've been known for actually deleting Alex Jones, like the actual podcast visitations and episodes that included Alex Jones that were existed on YouTube, now don't exist on Spotify, other than the most recent one because Joe Rogan was fact-checking the crap out of him. And that seems to be an under-the-table conversation that Spotify most likely had, I'm not going to say definitively, with Joe Rogan, because why are Alex Jones's previous episodes gone? Why are some of the other visitors that, were on the Joe Rogan podcast that may or may not have had a political bias, why are those gone as well? It seems like there is definitely some censorship going on with Joe Rogan's episodes, at least the previous ones, that Spotify hasn't been monitoring very closely. And that's a very important thing that a lot of people are, I guess, not truly calling out, or if they are calling it out, they aren't spending enough time to really tell you how important this truly is. Because if, for example, YouTube did the same thing and had exclusivity deals with, certain YouTube channels, they have free reign to delete or, do whatever they want in terms of, deleting previous YouTube videos. The same thing that's going on with Spotify and Joe Rogan. And it's quite concerning because the comment section doesn't exist on Spotify. So even if, the comment section, wanted to say something about the Spotify censorship on other Joe Rogan videos, that doesn't exist anymore. So the only way if, Spotify is censoring something or, beating around the bush and maybe possibly telling Joe Rogan to fact check Alex Jones, for example, well, that doesn't exist. There's no comment section to call that out anymore. So not only are people being censored at the audience level, but Joe Rogan himself is also being censored in terms of what he can say and cannot say. Now, like I said before, the deal is $100 million. So I'm not going to hold you. I'm not going to hold, anybody trying to get a $100 million bag and maybe is censored in terms of who he can bring over on the channel or bring over on the podcast. Like, I'm taking 100 mil for sure. Okay, so I mean, at the end of it all, it's definitely an interesting thing. I'm not going to say it's a good or bad thing, but it's definitely interesting to see that censorship is definitely occurring on Spotify. It's also just a shame that the YouTube comment section just it doesn't exist anymore. Like, the whole community that, would make memes of Joe Rogan or maybe had some insightful thoughts, that doesn't exist. It ceases to exist. And at the end of the day, I mean, there is a great opportunity, and I'm trying to end on a positive note here, but it's definitely a great opportunity for podcasters and also just content creators as a whole, because this goes to show you that you can get an exclusivity deal and get a huge sum of money. So I hope you all did enjoy. Drop a like, subscribe, turn on post notifications so you know when I upload another YouTube video. And yeah, I'm Cryptix, trying to secure my $100 million bag, and signing off.